All right, hey class, let's do the same thing we just did over here in the last video, but we're going to do it using pivot tables, and you'll see that it's probably a lot quicker and a lot easier. All right, so quickly, pivot tables. If you don't know how to do pivot tables, you should go watch the Excel boot camp, I think video number 6. Anyway, but here's pivot tables under Insert Pivot Tables. And it should, most of the time, just selects all the data. If it hasn't selected the data, then click this little button right here. And then you can just use the Control Shift over and down, get all that in there. And then say, okay, so I usually use a new worksheet. That's the easiest. All right, so here we go. Here's our new worksheet, pivot table. And let's drag this over here. Okay. Here we go. So what kind of M&Ms did you choose? We're going to put that in the row label because we want to get all these statistics sort of separated by those 3 things. And then what was our first one? How many M&Ms were in your bag? So we're going to drop that in the values. So whatever we stick in the values, that's where we're going to do like summing or averaging or counting how many things are in there. In this case, we want the average, right, of the number of M&Ms that are in the bag. So we drop that in there. The default is to give us a sum, because it's a numeric variable. If it were not a numeric variable, if it was some words, right, then the default would be a count. And count just means it counts every single time that appeared. All right, so we want to change this to average. So we can actually go up here and click right here on the title of this thing. I just learned this the other day. Right-click and say Summarize Values by Average. Okay. So that's pretty easy. So let's do the same thing then with how much does your M&M bag weigh? So I'm going to grab this, drop him down here into the values area, go up here and right-click again, right-click, to summarize values by average. Okay, and then finally, our final one is expected weight minus actual. Drop that in there so we can't see it anymore. We have to move this back into small. There we go. So this is the sum. So we want to change this. Right-click, summarize values by average, and there we have it. So let's sort of change this a little bit so we can see things a little better. So we're going to wrap this text a little bit. Quick wrap text. Make this a little smaller so you can see it. All right, so these answers, that quickly, we should be able to have the exact same answers we got before. So let's just double check real fast. Make sure we got the same answers. So I'm just going to copy this. Control C. I'm just going to paste it right next to it just to make sure we're looking good up. So we have to actually paste. We can say paste special, paste the values. So that way we just get the values. Otherwise we get the formulas, and if I paste the formulas over into the sheet, it's not going to work right. So paste values just gives us the real numbers in here. All right, so let's see, 56 is right there, 56. So we just have these reverse. So I can easily change this. So over here I have plain first, and then peanut down in the pivot table. I have peanut and plain. Well, I can change that. I can just drag it, drag plain up above, and there we go. So now it should be the same. So it looks right. 46 negative here. 1951, 2.31. Okay, so that looks good. So that was it. Just like that, we get the pivot tables done. So in class, we talked a little bit how we think this number is probably not quite right, and we can investigate it a little further. So, and it helps us understand why else we might use pivot tables. We can, as opposed to just looking at a type of M&Ms, we also have what branch of service you're in, right? So we can drag that and drop it in here. Right, so now I have them broken up by that. In fact, we could break it up. I didn't do this in class, but we could break it up by what's your favorite M&M color. Right? There we go. So whoever's favorite M&M color was yellow, that was whoever screwed this up. We also found out in class that it was an army person. So let's just go with this. So remember, if you double click inside one of these cells, then it actually gives us the raw data that's just that cell. Right. So let's double click on this negative 3.25. And see what we get. So we get this. These are all people who our favorite color was yellow. That's what makes them unique. And then we can say, oh, here's our expected weight minus actual. That's sort of an outlier, negative 43. And then we can kind of see what's going on. So yeah, how much does your M&M bag weigh in grams? 4.9 grams. So they probably meant 49. Right? They just keyed it in wrong. So we could go back here to the data and sort the data. Here it is. How much does your M&M bag weigh in grams? So find that, sort it, smallest to biggest. There we go, 4.9. And then let's just change that to 49. That will actually change our answers here, right? So now our actual has changed, 1.47. And in order to change the answer, so this hasn't been changed yet. This is still negative 3.25. Like, let's just get our what kind of M&Ms did you choose? Back in there. This is not right yet. In order to make it right, we have to go up here to, we have to click within the pivot tables, click on options, and say refresh. So there we go, we got the new data. All right, so the other questions that we were trying to answer in this problem were using the more descriptive data. So we're going to start all over with this pivot table. The easiest way to do that is to grab this this little summation value things and then throw it back up here. It gets rid of everything if you do that. Okay. So we're going to see, we want to know how many of each color of M&Ms. We want to find out which color is most prominent, right? So let's drag all of these into the values. So there's blue, there's red. Notice when I'm doing this, it's actually giving me the sum, which is probably okay. It's just summing up all. You know, we could do something else, but it would give us the same answer if we did like average or something like that, as in we still know which one was sort of most prominent. Now, I don't like the way that it's presenting across the rows. It's kind of hard to understand, to see the data. So I'm going to drag this values thing over here into the row label, and all it does is sort of switch the data around. Right? So it was going this way, now it's going that way. Same data. All right, so here we go. We could just go ahead and sort this. What's this in here? So where's that? Up here, once you click inside the pivot table, this is EA. So it looks like blue is the most prominent across both bags. Now, if I wanted to separate it across the two bags, I could do that as well. Remember, I dropped before how many what kind of M&Ms did you choose? I stuck it in the row labels. Well, now if I put it in the columns, it will separate it across columns, which is probably what I want. So let's try that. What kind of M&Ms did you choose? Is up here, and I'm going to drop it into the column label. And there we go. So it's separated by plain, peanut, and then total. So now I can say, you can sort these one at a time. So for plain, sort it, looks like it is blue. But for peanut, if I sort by peanut, then it's orange. Orange is the highest. So interesting, there might be some kind of story there that we could tell. All right, so the final thing is to see what the most prominent guess of M&M people chose, and then also their favorite. All right, so again, I'm going to grab this value sign and sort of just get rid of him. And I'm going to get rid of this guy too. Well, actually, we can leave it in there. That's fine. And let's find, what's your favorite M&M color? Yeah, let's do that one. Stick it in the row label. All right, so now I have, what's your favorite M&M color? Going this way, it goes and figures out all the possible values. And then plain versus peanut. I could just as easily sort of switch these around, right? So if I grab this one and put it this way, it's the same thing. It's just sort of switch the data around. So you can have it wherever you want. I prefer to have sort of the longer list going down the rows and then the shorter ones going across the columns, the way I have it right now. So, but as you see, I don't have any data in here. What I need is a count, right? So what I mean by count is I want to know how many people chose plain and chose blue as their favorite color. So how would I do that? Well, here's the answer, blue, and then here's plain, right? So I would just, if I were to do this manually, I'd have to do some sort of count if thing. I'd say count if they're plain, then count how many times you see blue, right? And then I'd do that for every color. Well, I can do that really quickly here in the spreadsheet. Instead of doing a count if, I just drag anything into this value statement. And if it's not numeric, then it's already a default as a count. So if I drag this timestamp in there, it says count of timestamp. What does that mean, count of timestamp? So that just means, if I go back to this data, it's just counting. Like this counts as 1, this counts as 2, this counts as 3. It's not summing anything. It's not taking an average. It's just counting. And each one of these counts as 1, right? Every time you see 1. So it's the same thing as saying, if you see plain and you see blue, just count 1 of these. And if you could have counted anything, it doesn't matter what you count, right? So here we go. So now we can, again, sort this. Sort of smallest to biggest. Where's my sorter? Here we go. All right, so it looks like blue is the favorite for both. No, blue is the favorite for plain, and then over here green is the favorite for peanut. Interesting. So we might not have sort of a big enough data sample to really know if that's right, but that's fine. This is what our class is. What our class says. So favorite, that's the favorite color. If I drag and get rid of this and say, what's your guess at the M&M color? I can grab that, put that in there. And people who chose plain, well, 8 of you chose green, and people who chose peanut, it looks like 8 of you chose orange. So, let's see, orange, that was right, but there was actually blue was the right for plain. So that means the rest of these people were wrong, and the rest of these people were wrong. So we talked about this in class. Most people, when they have this assignment, they just choose whatever is in their bag, right? So this is probably not, this is sort of an example of why we need statistics, is because if you were to choose a sample of 1, your one bag, you would probably get it wrong, most of the time. More than half of the time you get it wrong. So that's why we use statistics to actually generate some data and figure out what the right answer is. Okay, that's it for this video.